Texas Football Today is a production of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com. If you like the show, help us make it. Become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football insider at TexasFootball.com/subscribe. Besides helping us to make shows like this possible, you'll get 2 magazines, including our legendary summer edition, and a year of access to exclusive content on TexasFootball.com. That includes stuff like premium podcasts like Tep and Step, access to all 61 years of the magazine in our digital archives, recruiting analysis, and must-see insight from the Dave Campbell's Texas Football crew. If all of that sounds good to you, we hope you'll consider becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football insider at TexasFootball.com/subscribe. That's TexasFootball.com/subscribe. And thanks for listening. The Texas Football Today podcast is brought to you by Chocolate Milk, built by nature. You can watch Texas Football Today live weekdays at noon at TexasFootball.com and on Facebook. And if you like the show, subscribe to the podcast vendor of your choice. Give us a positive rating and tell a friend.
Yes, y'all. From the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Mothership here in beautiful Lewisville, Texas. It is Texas Football Today, a show celebrating 5 years be-free. My name is Greg Tepper.
You just
I'm the
jinxed
managing
it.
editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football magazine, TexasFootball.com, a corresponding website. Thank you for spending part of your day with us, whether you're watching us live at TexasFootball.com or on the Facebook.com, or you're listening to us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Either way, thank you for doing your part to support your local mediocre internet show. I am sitting over there at the helm today, making us sound good. She is the Duchess of the Dorks. She is Ashley Pickle. Hello, Ashley Pickle.
Howdy.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Also, I got to give a shout out real fast about my shirt,
Oh.
so I can show you here. I'll stand up. My brother sent this to me for my birthday because he played in the team tennis state championships, and so yeah, he sent me this awesome shirt.
And
So I decided to wear it.
And so your brother,
Yeah.
just be clear, your brother, for your birthday,
Yeah.
sent you a shirt from an event he attended.
Yes, because I had mentioned, I was like, oh, that would be cool to get a shirt from there.
Oh, you requested it.
Yeah, kind of. I didn't know if they
I
would
was gonna
have
say-
shirts or not.
I was going to say, there's a fair chance you got that shirt for free.
No.
In which case I was like, now I pulled that move before. I want to be clear. I'm like, look what I got you. I got you this hotel shampoo. You know what I mean? But-
Yeah, no, I had kind of mentioned it when I was back home for my vacation, as it was before that he had, like the week before he had went to go play in the state championship. But it's got Lano on the back. So
All right.
shout out to the shirt,
Shout
repping
out
the shirt
to
today.
Lano. Today is Thursday, April 1st, 2021. Oh, it's April Fool's Day.
Yeah, there was a slight part of me that almost asked if the beekeeping thing was an April Fool's joke, but I'm hoping from the New York Times that they wouldn't do that.
You would think.
But I'm never confident.
All right.
April Fool's Day is stupid. That's a whole other topic I
That's
could
a
go
whole
on.
thing. 238 days till Thanksgiving, episode 1137. 1137 is the Josh Wilson episode. On today's show, mi amigos, we will be talking about the two largest, let me rephrase this. Two of the most noticeable, impactful Texas high school football hires.
Seismic shift.
Seismic shifts. One in Class 6A and one in Class 1A. We'll talk about both of those and the implications that they have going forward coming up here in just a moment. In the back half of the show,
I ran out of room, so I put plus-ish.
back half of the show, there's other news. And so we are Texas Football Today, but today we will talk a little bit of basketball and allow
Sprinkle
our
it in.
good friend Ishmael Johnson to join us to talk about the news in the college basketball front, as well as promote his new podcast, Texas 24. So make sure you stay tuned for Ishmael Johnson coming up here at the back half of the program. Do we have first four through the door?
We sure do. It was Ed McElroy, Rob Hadaway, Alan Shepard, and Ryan Smiga. Welcome in, fellas.
Hello. Okay, let's get to it. If you go to TexasFootball.com, you will find our coaching changes page presented by our friends at the North Texas Honda Dealers. And you will see that we've got all of the Texas high school football coaching changes up there. Matt Stepp, of course, is our Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider. He is all over the coaching changes. That's why we have the Step Bomb. The Step Bomb.
I should have put the video in, darn it.
Yes.
Oh,
So, there are, and normally on Mondays we do headlines, and normally we would save coaching changes from the previous week until headlines on Monday. But there were 2 coaching changes this week, 2 of them, that I think are particularly interesting that we should take a little bit of time to talk about. One of them I think you probably heard about, and we're going to talk about what's happening in Allen. For if you've been living under a rock, Allen was open. Terry Gamble decided to retire, and so they were looking for a new coach. They have found a new coach. It is a gentleman whose name you probably know, a gentleman returning to the DFW Metroplex after a recent stint here, coaching the SMU Mustangs. I'm talking about Chad Morris. Chad Morris is the new head coach of the Allen Eagles, taking over the largest Texas high school football program in the state. I would need to check. I would presume it's the largest in America.
I would be absolutely
Be pretty
shocked
shocked
if it was
wasn't.
not.
So, Allen has their new coach. Now, here's what I know about the the Allen coaching search. And I know this basically through Matt Stepp. I want to be clear. This is not my own reporting. That Allen, for whatever they might have said publicly, they had a list. And they had a list of guys that they were going to go after. And they were going to give phone calls. And I know that they made a number of phone calls. I know not all of them said yes. Let's put it that way. But one guy who they were always going to get a phone call, they were always going to pick up the phone and call, was Chad Morris, the former SMU coach, the former Arkansas coach, and of course, for those who don't know, he cut his teeth in the Texas high school football world as the head coach of most notably at Stephenville, Lake Travis, and Bay City. That's where he had his most notable, although he was at Elysian Fields as well and was terrific there as well. So, excuse me. So, Allen, I think, there was always going to be a little bit of pressure on them to make a splashy hire. There was always going to be a little bit of pressure on them to go out there and bring in a guy. That, for example, there are a lot of coaches that I hold in really, really high regard that I think they are stars. I think they are awesome, awesome coaches. But, plain and simple, they are not splashy names.
No.
And as a result, they were not going to get called by Allen. It just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
Because I think that Allen is, in many respects, trying to maintain the brand of the Texas high school football program of record. We can certainly have a conversation as to whether or not they are that, but that is what they are trying to maintain.
If you ask people from outside the state, they're more likely to know Allen than literally any other program.
Right. And it's worth mentioning that, look, when they hired Terry Gamble, he was supremely impressive in his time at Hewitt Midway before he went up to Allen.
Correct.
But I would make an argument that, like, when he got hired at Allen, I think Matt Stepp and myself and people who follow Texas high school football were probably like, man, that's a super good hire. You know, he is Terry Gamble is a really, really good coach, but I don't know if it necessarily moved the needle from a national perspective. I think that that's probably the same case with Tom Westerberg. Tom Westerberg, when he was the coach at Allen from 2004 to 2015, that's when they really had their rise to behemoth status. Correct. Of course, that's when they were spectacular, kind of in the mid-2000s, and then, of course, during the Kyler Murray era, things like that. That's when Allen became Allen. It became the brand. Do you know what I mean? So Terry Gamble comes in, and Terry Gamble, again, I think everybody when he got hired was like, man, that's a super great hire for them when they hired
especially on the field wise.
Yes, on the field wise. But I also think that was not necessarily, they were not going out there trying to make a splash nationally.
It wasn't a shiny toy.
Right, exactly. I think the game has changed for Allen. And I think that they understand that they were going to have to go out there and make a splashy hire. And the names that were on their list, including Chad Morris, who they did hire, they were splashy. If they would have hired any of the guys that they were calling, it would have made waves. It would have been big doings. Every single one of them. Chad Morris is the new head coach at Allen. And I think there's some people who, you know, if you forget, let's just give you a refresher. Chad Morris was supremely successful at Bay City, supremely successful at Elysian Fields before Bay City, supremely successful at Stephenville, supremely successful at Lake Travis. He was one of the, in fact, I believe he's going to the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame this year. He is a spectacular high school football coach. There are going to be some people who look at his last stop, who look at what happened at Arkansas and say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Right. And you hear a lot of people saying, taking the step down, and it's almost like, it is a step down, but
I'll just say this. I'll just say this. I reject that notion outright, plain and simple. I think that coaches want to coach, plain and simple. And I think that he wants to coach. Things did not go well at Arkansas.
No.
I don't think that's going on a limb.
No,
they were not good under Arkansas. At Arkansas, he's pretty darn good at SMU, I would say.
Which is how he got to Arkansas in the first place.
Right. He was pretty darn good as the offensive coordinator at Clemson. Right. He's pretty darn good at Tulsa. I mean, his most recent stop was not good.
Right.
Plain and simple. But if you are looking at what he did at Arkansas and saying, well, this guy forgot how to coach, you are wrong. You are objectively wrong. He is an excellent coach, especially an excellent high school football coach, and I think that it's the kind of hire that Allen was looking for. A splashy hire, a name that's going to get people talking, and a darn good football coach, oh yeah, by the way.
Right.
That is, to me, what's interesting. Now, I think one thing people are maybe getting misconstrued, I think they're like, how can they afford Chad Morris? How can they go out there and they can afford Chad Morris? There is one small thing to keep in mind, and I don't like talking about money when it comes to high school football coaches, but one thing to keep in mind, because he was a college football coach, so it's on the record, I can tell you about that. He's getting a buyout from Arkansas.
Yes.
Okay?
A large one.
Whatever money that Allen is paying him is just money that Arkansas doesn't have to pay him. Okay? And I'll promise you that, like, the money he's getting from Arkansas is larger than what Allen is paying them, is what I'm saying. That fundamentally, he is not taking this job for the money. Chad Morris probably doesn't need any more money.
No.
Okay? He was a head coach at SMU, and he was a head coach at Arkansas and the SEC for a couple of years. He's probably good on money. He's not there for money. And furthermore, and I guess this is like a really weird thing to say, and I don't feel super comfortable saying it, but like, Allen's not the highest paying job in the state, guys.
No.
It's they pay okay.
They're in the top 10, I think, but not.
Are they? I don't know if that's true.
I think so.
I don't know if that's
Maybe
true.
not.
I can't verify that. What I'll tell you is that they do not pay this exorbitant amount of money. That they weren't going to go money whip Nick Saban to come coach the high school football team. Okay? But from a monetary perspective, I think you're thinking about it a little bit wrong, that Chad Morris, the money side of it is not necessarily the factor here. It's obvious he wants to come back and coach Texas high school football. He landed in a spot like Allen where there will be a lot of pressure. One other thing that I think is going to be interesting about this, and this is a new dynamic at Allen, and I'll promise we'll move on to the next coaching big coaching change here in a moment. The other thing about that is there's a lot we've mentioned this on the air, that Allen is its own beast. You deal with a lot of things at Allen that you don't deal with at other places, simply because of the size, simply because of the politics, simply because of everything you do there.
Just as much off the field as you do on the field, basically, is an Allen thing to say.
If it gets too much,
yeah, he just bounces.
He can just leave.
Yeah.
And that's a new dynamic at Allen that I think is going to be really interesting to keep an eye on. Now, again, here's the bottom line of it. Chad Morris is a supremely talented football coach. And Allen, I think, made a great hire by bringing in a guy like Chad Morris.
Yep.
It does add some new dynamics to what Allen looks like and how Allen operates going forward. And that'll be interesting to see. So there's that. There was one other coaching change that maybe you missed, that maybe you didn't see earlier this week. And that was the news out of six-man football at 1A, and that is that Dwayne Lee and his staff are heading for Aquila. And maybe you don't understand the ramifications of this, but Dwayne Lee has been at Strawn for 18 years. Mm-hmm. It's been 18 years. He guided them to 4 state championships, 03, 08, and then back-to-back in 17 and 18. This is one of the very best six-man football coaches. I mean, I can't speak to what the six-man football world is like outside of the state of Texas, so I'll just say it with my chest. He's one of the very best six-man football coaches in America.
Yes.
Right? And Aquila going and hiring him is a huge seismic shift in the six-man world. 1AFan.com was the one who broke it. I want to give credit there. 1AFan.com was the one who broke it. We had heard some rumblings earlier that there could be a huge shift. This is one of the biggest six-man football coaching changes ever. Plain and simple. And one thing that I think is going to be very interesting to watch, Aquila is a program that I think is, from what I understand, they really want to get back up into the upper echelon. This is a program that does have some history. It's a program that's been good in the past, but they have fallen on hard times as of late. But this is a program that's been very, very good, in their past. I think they want to get back to that. From what I understand, they're making a pretty major investment by doing this, by bringing in Dwayne Lee. And bringing his whole staff along is going to make this a really interesting thing as well. I think this is real. Like, if you're talking as far as impact on an entire classification is concerned, Dwayne Lee going to Aquila is very interesting. They go into, I'll tell you this much, I got a text message as soon as this news came out. I got a text message from one of the other coaches in that district who was like, well, things just got a little interesting.
Yep. That's a tough district out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the district with Coolidge, with Abbott, with Penelope and Golson. This is a huge maneuver in the six-man world. That in 1A, that Dwayne Lee leaving Strawn for Aquila. I also think Strawn's a pretty good job, and that's going to open up now as well. Keep an eye on Aquila. They are a team that's making some moves, a program that's looking to make a huge splash, and this is a huge splash hire there, hiring Dwayne Lee away from Strawn. So keep an eye on that. We are Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com, talking football in the Lone Star State. You can follow us on Twitter at DCTF, like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. TexasFootball.com is where you can find complete coverage of high school football, college football, and recruiting all across the Lone Star State. We hope you will consider becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider at TexasFootball.com/subscribe. If you want the 2020 recruiting edition, where'd it go? If you want the 2020 recruiting edition, and you're subscribing after starting today, you need to buy this separately. It does not come part as we flipped the switch today. So if you subscribe today, the first magazine you get will be the 2021 summer edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. It'll be mailed to you early before it hits newsstands. So check that out, TexasFootball.com/subscribe to become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider. Pickle, let's go to the hotline. And let's bring in the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Basketball. We are joined by our good friend and colleague, Ishmael Johnson. Ishmael, how are you?
Oh, hello.
That's good to talk with you.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there.
I want to ask you the most important question, which is, and I just want to get you on the record. I know the answer to it, but have you watched Godzilla vs. Kong yet?
I have not yet. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but for some reason I have not just jumped right into it.
Yeah, I need to hop on it too. Maybe we can stream us watching it together. It'll be great. Okay. All right. So we've got you on. Normally we are a football show. The middle word of this program is football, after all. But there's big news in the basketball world today in Texas, and we would be remiss if we didn't bring on our basketball insider to talk about it. Chris Beard, the head coach of Texas Tech, is no longer the head coach of Texas Tech. He will be, according to reports, the new head coach at the University of Texas, replacing Shaka Smart. I guess your initial reaction to the news today of Chris Beard leaving Tech to go to Texas?
Somewhat not shocking, but then part of me is like, okay, I guess Texas is okay paying its basketball coach more than its football coach. That was kind of I have an article up on TexasBasketball.com where I kind of run through about 3 or 4 candidates that I thought would be in the running, and that was the biggest hurdle for me to convince me that Beard would get the job, because he makes roughly, I think about 5.5 or 6 million at Tech, and Steve Sarkisian at Texas makes 5.2.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd have to obviously match that and probably surpass that by 1 million or two. And I just didn't see that. I didn't see that happening. And now, if we ever see Steve Sarkisian and Chris Beard out to dinner in Austin, Chris Beard's picking up the tab. So
it is rather remarkable, and I think that you take a look, you take a look at who Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas, has hired over the course of his tenure there. Obviously, Steve Sarkisian, becoming the head coach at for football. You add in Chris Beard to what's already. I mean, let's add in the other one, which is Vic Schaefer. Hiring Vic Schaefer away from Mississippi State, already a women's college basketball powerhouse, to come to Texas. Do you look at this as, this is a weighted question, do you look at this as a signature hire here for Chris Del Conte?
I think so. I think that's why I'm partially, and why I was underwhelmed, why a lot of people were underwhelmed with Steve Sarkisian, is because he was coming off literally a summer where he just poached, Vic Schaefer. And this was, there were rumblings that Chris Beard was obviously their top target. And I don't know, I can't think of another hire that mimics this or that would surpass this, right? Maybe if he would have landed Urban Meyer, or maybe if he would have poached somebody like a James Franklin or, in football. But I couldn't think of a more on the money, powerhouse hire, because, Tech's obviously a rival, obviously a Big 12 power, a national power now. And, to me, the biggest thing was that the biggest thing connecting Chris Beard to Texas was the fact that he was an alum. Mm-hmm. But he was a Tech assistant longer than he was an alum under Bob Knight. And a lot of people thought that loyalty aspect would, maybe keep him at Tech, and the fact that Tech's okay being a basketball powerhouse and a more of a competitive football school as opposed to, a powerhouse in football and a competitive basketball program. So they had no problem paying him $6 million while Matt Wells, made less. But yeah, I get, like, I'm curious to see the demands that Beard had to have made and the assurances that he had to have gotten, because we know that Texas they broke ground on a new stadium or a new arena because the Irwin Center is a cavernous void, and so I'm wondering if he has assurances about what that facility will be and what else the program is going to be doing to kind of boost the perception.
Finally, Ishmael Johnson, you can find his final work at TexasBasketball.com. There is another side to this. Obviously, I think Texas fans are pretty fired up to bring in a guy like Chris Beard, who's taken a program to to the national title game just a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. There is another side to this, which is now Texas Tech is an intriguing opening in the college basketball coaching ranks. I'm not going to ask you to handicap things, but when you take a look at who Texas Tech may be looking at for their next basketball coach, what do you see?
I wonder how much they they obviously invested a lot in Chris Beard, and to me, it wouldn't make sense for them to just scrap what he built there. So I think they should consider promoting from within. Ulrich Maligi is one of his prominent assistants. He was their top player development and recruiting guy. I would not be surprised if they decide to give him the job, or at least look at him very, very seriously. Then of course you have to go outside of that. If you don't promote within, I think that the natural names are going to be Grant McCasland at North Texas. I know he's also going to be in the running for the Oklahoma job by a lot of reports. I don't know if you go somebody like Joe Golding out of Abilene Christian. He obviously did a great job, but I think that where Tech is, they're in a position to maybe look a little bit bigger. So I think Golding would be a great head coach, but I think he's maybe one job away from getting that job. I think maybe somebody like McCasland would be more of their fit, because culture-wise, he also wouldn't be that big of a shift from what Chris Beard was able to do defensively with that program. So basically, I would go Maligi, but I wouldn't be shocked if they go outside for somebody like a McCasland.
He's Ishmael Johnson. He's the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Basketball. Find his fine work at TexasBasketball.com. And You want to tell people about your podcast? You got this cool new podcast.
Yeah, Texas 24 on Apple Podcasts right now. We're working to get it on Spotify and some other spots too. But yeah, we've been pumping out multiple podcasts a week for the men's and women's tournaments. We did our first couple episodes over the girls and boys state, kind of previewing and then recapping girls and boys state basketball. So you can go back and listen to those as well. It's me and Matthew Bruni from 247. Yeah, it's been really good so far. We pumped out quite a bit of episodes in the span of like roughly a month. So yeah, go subscribe, rate, all that stuff.
It's Texas 24, hosted by Ishmael Johnson. And Ish, go enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong, and then afterwards we can record a joint podcast going minute by minute and frame by frame.
Oh yeah, definitely 3 hours minimum.
Later, Ish.
Bye, Ish.
There you go.
Later.
Ishmael Johnson, the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Basketball, joining us here to talk a little bit of basketball here on TexasFootball.com. There's big news like that that's Texas-centric. We have a resource. Wow.
Oh, yeah. And we were talking coaches changes all day today anyway, so we might as well make sure to hit that.
And people love Ish.
People, that's the real thing, is I just get demanded for more Ish content.
The people demand Ish.
So
there you go.
we try to get it when we can.
And now we go live over to the Pickle Zone for America's second favorite segment, Final Thoughts.
Is that what we're calling it now?
The Pickle...
The Pickle Sphere.
Pickle Sphere, the Pickle Zone, Pickle...
Can we get it sponsored?
Yeah.
Clausen Pickles follows me on Twitter.
Do they?
Yeah, I'm one of like the 100 people that they're following on Twitter. That's a flex.
Interesting. Anyway, Final
Wanted to shout out Chris Gebhardt because he is watching from Three Rivers, Michigan.
Hey now.
Step was watching from Canada, so
He doesn't count.
shout out to them.
He doesn't count. He has to watch.
No, two more things. One, our good buddy down at Texan Live, Trevor Bullard, was watching the show and texted me during the show to let us know that he watched Godzilla vs. Kong and that it is chef's kiss.
Of course.
So,
guys, Godzilla
you got
beating up a monkey.
Yeah, so you got that endorsement there.
Yes.
But the next thing is Tommy Hayes commented a while ago. Yeah.
Valued photographer Tommy Hayes.
Yes, he commented a while ago when we were talking about your bee story in the pre-show, and he said, "Who counted them?" And I always wonder on things like that. Like,
I think I actually have an answer to that.
Okay. Did they capture them and then go release them somewhere else?
Let's see. Yeah, it was. That's what they did. They were able to capture them. To put a bow on this story, they were able to capture them. No major injuries, although a supermarket security guard and at least one firefighter were stung. Let's see. But basically, the fire department estimated that 15,000 bees were removed.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an estimate. I think what it is, I think it's like weight. You know what I mean? I think it's like a weight situation.
Okay, because then they would say 3.5 pounds.
Yeah.
Them knowing the pounds would, okay.
I think that what they're saying is that, I mean, if you do a little bit of back-of-the-envelope math, right, which I'm not going to do because I'll embarrass myself, but you can probably figure out
if they weigh an ounce or two.
Yeah, how much 1,000 pounds or 1,000 bees weighs, or
like 1 pound of bees is equivalent to most likely this number of bees, so you go up from there. But yeah, that's funny because I always did. He made a good point, and I was like, I've always wondered that. Like they're like, oh yeah, 15,000. It's like
they've got to have. It's
someone
sit there and they're not going like one. Don't move! Don't move!
Everybody stay still.
Everybody stop. 1, 2, 3. It's got to be a pound.
Darn it, Jimmy, stay still.
That's gonna do it for us. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. Thanks to Ishmael Johnson of Dave Campbell's Texas Basketball and TexasBasketball.com for being our guest. For Ashley Pickle, I'm Greg Tepper. Vince Young, please come get your Player of the Year trophy. We'll see you tomorrow for Mailbag Friday, presented by North Texas Honda Dealers here on Texas Football Today.